Hi, welcome, and this is another tutorial for a cloth pad, specifically a panty liner. So this is the cute little liner that I'm going to be doing in the video. So it's just a panty liner, it's no PUL built into it. It's going to have the basic plastic snaps on there, which I'll also show you how to put those on. So if you're ready, we can get started. Okay, so here I'm just outlining the pattern, which I made myself on Photoshop. I might be posting a video just showing you guys how you can take a measurement of your underwear and then decide how long you want it, the width, the wings as well. I also included the liner on the pattern. So these pins I'm adding here, I'm not going to keep them there because I realized I rather top stitch the outside of the pattern because those pins tend to have like these bulges, and I don't like the way it looks when I'm done with the pattern because then it's like extra, just the fabric just bulges and I don't like it. And I'll do the same thing with the panty liner. You're gonna see me add the pins on there, but I'm gonna remove it eventually and just top stitch around the lining of the pattern that I'm making. And of course, always iron your fabric. It makes such a huge difference when you're doing these patterns. Also, if you're going to hand stitch as well, the whole thing, I'm going to be using a sewing machine, but if you decide to hand stitch everything, using an iron on your pattern, on your sewing, makes a huge difference. So here I'm just top stitching all around. You can do it on the outside of your pattern that you've drawn, or you could do it on the inside. It doesn't matter. You can make the top stitch as long as you want. It's just to hold the fabric in place. And like I said, I removed those pins that I had placed on the fabric earlier. And once you've secured it, you can go on and just move on to your other pattern and do the same thing and top stitch it. And I already did that there, and I left of course the opening where I'm gonna turn the fabric inside out. And this is just to show you how I'm just sewing the pattern. I'm sewing right on the line. When I make my patterns, I don't leave seam allowance. I just don't like it. I'm not very good at measuring how much more in or out from the seam allowance that I'm going to be allowing. I just like stitching right on top of that pattern on the line. Cool. So now that we're done stitching around our fabric, of course, not stitching over the area where we need to leave open because we're going to turn the fabric inside out. Again, ironing down the fabric. Of course, take off the top stitch off of the fabric. I like to take it off now versus just cutting the pattern, and then I'm going to end up cutting the top stitch. I just find it much harder to take off the little pieces versus one long piece just pulling it out. Now we're just going to cut the fabric, and I'm just going to show you how close I actually get to that stitching. Just be careful when you're doing this. Again, take it as slow as you need to. That way you're not cutting on the actual stitching, because then everything's just ruined. So now that our cutting is done, I'm just going to iron the fabric down. Then I'm going to take my scissors to cut slits on the inner corner. The reason I'm doing this is so when we turn the fabric inside out, the fabric is not going to bulge around that area. If you want, as an experiment, you can just leave one corner, inner corner, not slit, and you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Now for my least favorite part, but necessary, it's turning the fabric inside out. I think this is probably the hardest part of this whole construction of these panty liner. It's just turning the fabric inside out. But there is enough room in the pattern that I created to get this through. You just have to be careful not to stretch out the opening where you're pushing the fabric through. Just, again, take it easy, take it slow. That way it just doesn't stretch out. When you're working with multiple layers, that can just become very difficult. If you need to leave that opening much more longer, just go ahead and do that if you need to. Now that we have the fabric inside out, I'm just going to tuck in that extra fabric inside the opening, and I'm just going to go all around the fabric, kind of pulling out any extra fabric that's still tucked in there, and then I'm just going to pass the iron all around the fabric just to flatten everything down before I start stitching. I can't emphasize how important your iron is to just have a neat project. So again, I'm just tucking in at the stitch area and just pulling the fabric out just in case if anything's tucked in. You can definitely take a pair of scissors or just a ruler. You could take a ruler and just kind of like push out the fabric going in through that opening on the panty liner. And once you have everything kind of how you want it, you could just iron it out. So here, because I'm working with flannel, I can just pull the fabric and kind of like iron it more or less with my fingernail to kind of get the fabric to lay flat, and then I'll just pass the iron over it again. And exactly what you're doing to the main part of the pad, you're going to do to the topper. So the body is done, the topper is done, and we're going to start stitching. So when I'm stitching, I use the left leg of the foot as a guideline just to make sure that my stitching is even all around. So just in case you were curious, those were my stitch settings. So here we go. So now I am going to stitch the topper on to the main part of the panty liner. So I am just measuring, just make sure like everything's aligned properly. I have the same spacings on the sides, on the top part of the edge. It all matches. And I'm going to top stitch that onto the main part of the panty liner so it doesn't move on me while I'm stitching and it's nice and flat. So you see I top stitched it, and I'm using again the edge of that foot, the left foot, as my guideline as I'm stitching it. And just go all the way around on top of that topper to stitch that down. As I said it before, and I'll always say it again, take your time, especially on those curves. So I'm going to remove the top stitch. And now I'm going to do away with all the extra threads. I don't like cutting it off, but you can if you want. I like bringing the stitch on the, the thread on the other side over, all of them over to one side, and then I'm going to tie them into a little knots, and then I am going to actually tuck them in between the fabric. But if you want, of course, you can go ahead and cut it. It's just, I like doing it that way, and tucking them inside in between the fabric just for aesthetic reasons. At this point, you can take your scissors and just cut the thread and you'll be done, and you can add the snaps on. But I prefer to tuck in the thread in between the fabric. I just use a very thick needle just because it's easier to pass the thread through since it has a big opening. But you can use any needle that you like. And that is it. We're done with all our stitching. I love the pattern and the colors. It looks great. So now what we're going to do is just add our little snaps on there. So these snaps and the tool to put the snaps, I just bought them online. I don't remember what I looked at when I went and searched for it. I just found it online and I just bought it. It wasn't too expensive, especially the snaps. I think I bought like a bunch of like different colors for $5. I think it was like $100 for all of $100, 100 snaps for $4 or $5. The tool to put the snaps together, that was $14, so it was just a little bit more, but it was well worth purchase because I do use it a lot, because I do make a bunch of my own panty liner. I'm always seeing like new fabrics that I love. I feel like my stash is just gonna get so big I'm not even gonna know what to do with it. But I love sewing, so right now I'm just kind of getting that big same needle that I use to tuck in the thread to help me kind of make an opening, to put the snaps. I do use the pattern just to measure exactly where the snaps are because I already did the measurement and I'm terrible at guessing. Like, I always make such a mistake, so I need that guidance in my pattern, to tell me exactly where I'm going to put these snaps on. So it's not very difficult to use. You just literally squeeze and it kind of bends in the little extra piece of plastic that's at one end of the snap, and it just seals it. So that guy is not coming off. And again, I'm going to use the pattern just to help me measure exactly where I'm going to place the snap. So I just pass it through the hole, take off my pattern. I'm going to wiggle that needle around to kind of help open that hole a little bit more so I can put that snap in. And be mindful how you're putting the snap on because it has to be placed in a specific way. If not, there's no way to snap it on, which is why I'm always checking. You see me always checking just to make sure, just to remind myself that I'm putting the snaps on correctly. Awesome. That is it, guys. You have just made your own panty liner. Enjoy it, love it, have fun sewing. Bye.